Have you ever tried to explain yourself clearly, carefully, honestly, and walked away feeling worse than before you spoke? You chose your words carefully, you were patient, you were calm, and still your explanation was twisted, dismissed, or used against you. If this keeps happening to you, it is not because you're a bad communicator. It is because you are explaining yourself to people who were never trying to understand you in the first place. Friedrich Nietzsche saw this pattern more than a century ago, and what he wrote about it is something most people are never told. In this video, you will discover why truly intelligent people eventually stop explaining themselves, and why that decision is not arrogance, it is survival. Point 4 is the one that changes everything, so stay until you reach it. 1. Explanation assumes good faith, and not everyone is operating in good faith. When you explain yourself, you are making a quiet assumption. You are assuming the other person wants the truth, that they are listening to understand, not to respond, that they will receive what you say honestly. But Nietzsche was deeply suspicious of this assumption. He believed that most social interactions are not exchanges of truth, they are exchanges of power. And when you explain yourself to someone who is not acting in good faith, you're not building a bridge, you're handing them a blueprint of your vulnerabilities. 2, the more you explain, the more they demand. There's a pattern you have probably lived through. You explain once, they push back. You explain again in more detail. They push back harder. You go deeper, more specific, more vulnerable. And suddenly, you are on trial for something you never did. Nietzsche wrote that the weak instinctively seek to make the strong feel guilty. Each explanation you offer becomes new evidence in a case that was already decided before you opened your mouth. Intelligent people learn this early. The explanation is not the problem. The audience is. 3. Your need to explain is a need for approval in disguise. This one is uncomfortable. When you feel the urgent pull to make someone understand you, to correct their perception of you, to prove that you are not what they are accusing you of, that urgency is not logic. It is a need for their validation. Nietzsche believed that a truly sovereign individual does not require the approval of others to feel certain of their own worth. The moment you no longer need someone to understand you is the moment they lose all power over your peace. You explain because you still care what they think, and caring what the wrong people think is how intelligent people stay trapped. 4. People don't misunderstand you by accident. This is the point most people are not ready to hear. When someone repeatedly misrepresents what you said, twists your words, or refuses to acknowledge your reasoning no matter how clearly you present it, that is not confusion. That is a choice. Nietzsche wrote that some people use misunderstanding as a weapon. It keeps you engaged. It keeps you justifying. It keeps you small. The moment you realize misunderstanding can be intentional, the compulsion to explain yourself dissolves almost immediately. You were never unclear. You were just inconvenient. 5. Silence, after disrespect, is not avoidance. It is self-respect in action. Most people confuse disengaging with losing. They believe that walking away from a conversation without resolving it means the other person won. But Nietzsche saw resolution differently. He believed that not every conflict deserves your energy. Not every accusation deserves your defense. And not every person who questions your character deserves access to your inner world. Withdrawing your explanation is not running. It is a decision about who has earned the right to your reasoning and who has not. 6. The people who truly understand you rarely need an explanation. Think about the relationships in your life where you feel no pressure to justify yourself, where you can say one sentence and be understood completely. Those relationships exist because there is genuine respect on both sides. Nietzsche believed that real connection is rare, and that most social energy is wasted on people who are fundamentally incompatible with who you are. Chasing understanding from someone who cannot or will not offer it is not persistence. It is self-abandonment with extra steps. 7. The day you stop explaining yourself is the day you become uncontrollable. Because when people can no longer provoke a response from you, they lose their leverage. When your sense of self no longer depends on being understood by a specific person, they lose their grip. Nietzsche called this true freedom, not the absence of enemies, but the absence of their power over you. So stop explaining yourself to people who have already decided. Stop justifying your decisions to people who weren't there. Stop defending your character to people whose opinion of you was never based on truth. Your silence is not a gap that needs to be filled. It is a boundary that finally has teeth. If this reached something in you, subscribe to the channel. Because the more you understand about human psychology and power, the harder you become to manipulate.